You have to do something else, if I remember
Setting
correctly.
up your meeting for Facebook. Yeah, that's what I didn't do last time. I hit go live and then I didn't hit the extra.
Yeah, there's additional. Oh, it says it's live now.
Meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. Are we live?
That's
Well,
what it says.
I'm still doing some things here. Okay. Well, it's okay. Well, if we are live, then welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. This is I've got Meghan here with me from Parker Books. This is Landis Wade at Charlotte Readers Podcast, where authors give voice to the written words. And I'm assuming we're live. I'm just gonna have to go with the idea that we are, and I'll just leave it at that, and we'll keep rolling here. It's just a technology thing, but hey, I'm so happy for those of you who are going to join us tonight. I've got Meghan here. She is at the bookstore. She has put herself in a closet so she can talk to us without getting bombarded by all the people that are buying books over there. But let me introduce Meghan first. Meghan Anderson, she's a bookseller, also runs events at Parker Books. And Meghan, you told me you're from Virginia, but you moved to Charlotte in the last year. And before that, you've lived, well, kind of tell us, you've lived all over the place, right?
I have.
Yeah.
I'm from Virginia, born and bred, and I went out west to school. I went to San Diego, and then I lived in Denver for a while and worked, and then I moved to Nashville. And in Nashville, I spent the last 7 years teaching high school English. And then I moved here. My fiance got a really good job here in finance. I know it's shocking, the nature of Charlotte. But it is the tech side of finance, so I at least can say that.
So you got this family. One side's finance, the other's books, right? So we got
Yes.
we got to be able to have somebody that's bringing in whatever. So, but although speaking of that, let's talk about the health of the industry now, because COVID-19 has been, it's just done a lot to us this past year, and bookstores, independent bookstores, have suffered. Although I get the sense that Park Books has been kind of like that little engine that could. So talk about how Park Roads has adapted and overcome during this time period.
Well, thank you for calling us the little engine that could. We appreciate that, because some days we feel like we're chugging along and other days we are off the track, to keep with the metaphor. So when the shutdown order happened in March, like I wouldn't say we had to do like a full pivot like other small businesses, but we really had to streamline a new system of curbside pickup and how we were going to do the online orders in the most efficient way. And honestly, how we were going to sort of simulate browsing for people, because I think unlike other industries, a lot of people go into bookstores and browse, and they pick up a book based on a staff rec or based on the way it's facing out, or because it's in a display about mysteries or whatever have you. And so we had a lot of people calling us and being like, I want books ABC. Great. We rung them up, gave them to them curbside, or shipped them out. But we had a lot of calls that were just like, I need a cooking book and I would love for it to be a West African cooking book. What do you got? And so it's a different thing to browse for people and their book interests. And it is a time consuming thing. So we sort of had to figure out how best to do that and how to best staff doing that. But we made it through, and we were very lucky compared to other bookstores in North Carolina. We were able to open in June, and we were really able to do that because of the physical size of the store. So we just don't have a very small store. So our capacity is a lot larger and our ability to spread out is a lot larger. And so we were so thankful to be able to open again and have people in store. And really since June, people have been super respectful of, if we said, hey, there's a lot of people in this aisle, could you guys just wait a minute? People are really good about it. And we kept up curbside because we do have a lot of people who still don't want to come in. We serve a pretty large elderly population. So we have tried to really keep them by being like, look, you can call us. It's no big deal. And lots of people take advantage of that. The one thing that we did have to cut really from, like, I would say the bones of what Park Road Books is in terms of our operations is that we really just said we couldn't do any in-person events. Like, we toyed with the idea of trying to do them on the sidewalk, and then we toyed with being like, okay, this is like a 12-person limited event. But because we just have so many local authors in Charlotte that, the book comes out and you can't control if it comes out in a pandemic or not. And we felt really bad, but we really just had to say, no, we couldn't, because we didn't want there to be any form of gathering, and we didn't want to be responsible for any sort of spread, no matter how small.
Which is really kind of a good transition to this idea of virtual events, which is exactly what we're doing now. People are learning how to use Zoom and Zoom to Facebook Live, which is what we're doing now. And it's being authors having to learn new techniques, learn new things, as are bookstores, to get out and get the messaging out. And the thing we're doing tonight to viewers and listeners is that Megan's going to be talking about books for the season. We're going to be talking about things you can buy. And so previously you could go into the store and stay for a long, long time. Now people kind of, I think, are deliberate about they come in, they look for what they're looking. It's not as, it's not like being able to hang out in a bookstore like you used to hang out in a bookstore, but we're going to get there. We're going to get to that point. But in the virtual world, you've had to adapt too, right?
We have done a handful of author events with a few people that we've done events with before, and they've reached out to us special, and we felt like we could help them. And we've done them through Zoom, and we did a very small handful through Instagram Live. And they've been great sources of community. We've had lots of people attend, and lots of like good Q&A on those events, good questions and answers, and good discussion. Lots of people very thankful that we did them. Have also had a lot of conversations with older customers explaining how to get on the Zoom link and all, and so it's been a nice teaching moment for me as well. But it's been interesting to see where those people are coming from, because I do think one of the beautiful things about our virtual events is that we're getting people in these events who wanted to attend but are not from Charlotte. And so it's opened up like a whole new customer base. Like we have people ordering from us who were like, hey, I saw this virtual event with y'all and I wanted to support you. Let me order these books. And they're either in rural North Carolina or usually another state.
That's great. Well, you'd have to be sleeping under a rock in Charlotte not to know about Park Road Books. They've been supporting us at the podcast here since the beginning when we got this started in October of 2018. And I can still remember the tagline. They're the oldest and only independent bookstore in the Charlotte region. So, and that's true. They've been around the longest. They're the only independent bookstore. They've hung in there. They've stayed there, largely in part, I would think, Megan, to the fact that we got a loyal customer base, right? People come back and support the bookstore.
I would say that is. So I've only been at the bookstore about a year and a half, and the loyal customer base is probably the most loyal customer base anywhere I've ever seen. I mean, when we shut down in June, the number of people who called and were like, I want to order 12 books, who they didn't need 12 books, but they were just like, how can I help you? What can I do? Right. And I just think that we have received such an outpouring of support that we are so thankful. We're so thankful and we're so grateful. And we try to, spread that joy through the store when you're here or when you come to curbside. On that note, a kind of side bit to it is that I feel like the pandemic in general has really, really pushed or brought to light a lot of small businesses in Charlotte. So even the few people under a rock, as you said, who didn't know us, I feel like we've gotten new customers that have said, I want to support local. I don't want to buy from the big A. How can I order through you? So we have had actually a huge outpouring of new customers, specifically online, which has been wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. Well, hey, we're not going to keep viewers, listeners in suspense any longer. We're here today because, bookstores are in the business to sell books, but it's also a place where we can learn about some great books to read. So in addition to picking up book tips on Charlotte Reader's podcast, on our podcast and through our newsletter, which we now call the Book Report, Megan, let's start it off. You've got a number of books here you're going to show us and talk about tonight. So why don't you start off with one and we'll just kind of roll it. Yeah.
Okay, so the way I went about it is I sort of asked everyone on our staff what they would recommend for the podcast listeners and for the general Charlotte public. And so many of you who are listening or watching probably know Sally, our wonderful store owner. And so I started with her, and she recommended Tana French's The Searcher. And some of you might have read Tana French before, some of you might have never. But the thing that I feel like makes this book stand out is that it's really good for everyone. It is kind of a police procedural, kind of a mystery, kind of a man moves to the middle of nowhere story. It's about an ex-cop who's American who moves to Western Ireland. And of course, he stumbles upon a case that he has to solve. So it's kind of great. Tana French is Irish, and all of her books are set in Ireland. This is a standalone, so you don't need to have read anything else. But she describes this as a Western, which it is in Western Ireland,
Right.
but it's not like the American Western. But I kind of see the tropes in it, like that sort of final frontier kind of idea, a man sticking it out on his own. But the characters are really likable. The story is really immersive. If you want to be transported, which I know a lot of us do because we cannot actually go anywhere, this is a great read. And it's a good gift, honestly, for any reader. And that's kind of why Sally.
What's the cover there? It looks like, is that an ocean or is that a?
It is fields of grass.
Fields
and
of grass.
It's green
Okay.
because Ireland is always green no matter what.
Okay. All right. Yeah, but dark, ominous clouds too, though. There, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
sort of a mystery, sort of a police procedural, but not apparently like, super dark.
All right. So Sally Brewster's recommending Tana French and The Searcher. All right. What's that? What else you got?
Vita is recommending Shuggie Bain by Douglas Stewart. And a lot of you have probably seen this book, but it just recently came out in paperback. So we wanted to sort of give you some options of hardback and paperback. It actually also, you probably might have seen it because it recently just won the Booker Prize. So it's kind of a big deal. It's essentially like a coming of age story, but it's a very, very Scottish coming of age story. Apparently I am only giving you books.
I was going to say, we got Ireland and then we got Scotland.
We're very into the foggy, rainy British Isles here.
My wife would love this. She says she loves a misty day, so.
I mean, these two are definitely misty, but actually in the next book, I'm going to take you somewhere else. But for now, we're going to stay in the mists. It's a coming of age story of a man growing up in Scotland, and he is dealing with poverty and an alcoholic mother. It's in the 1980s, so it's in the rise of Thatcherism. An interesting fact, he is the second Scottish person ever to win the Booker Prize, which is kind of weird considering it's an English prize. But it's one of those books that's excellent storytelling, not a super upper, but in a beautiful, like, cry your heart out kind of story.
All right, good.
Okay.
Are we coming to the U.S. now? You've been to Ireland? You've been to Scotland? No, we're still overseas.
We here at Park Road Books believe in the traveling through books.
You're an international bookstore, right?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we do have to ship internationally.
There you go.
The next one is a cookbook, and it's from Alex, one of our few male booksellers here. So many of you probably know him.
Is Alex a good cook? Yeah,
he is an excellent cook, and he would probably cook for you as a customer if you asked.
We can take him up on that. Yeah.
This is called In BB's Kitchen, and it is a cookbook where it's like recipes and stories from grandmothers across 8 different African countries, and all the African countries touch the Indian Ocean. So they have sort of an African Indian influence on both of them, depending on what the country is. And so it goes through the recipes are by country. And he said, and he wanted me to quote him. So he said that he's only gone through 2 of the 8 countries, but he loved every single recipe that he has cooked. So he highly, highly recommends it. And his tip is that, like, some of the recipes call for spice blends that you could buy pre-made. But if you go to the back of the book, they show you how to make the spice blends from various resources from other spices. And his suggestion is to make the spice blends yourself, because it's good to have them in bulk and you use them through a variety of recipes. Additionally, he says some of the things are hard to find pre-made here in the States, but you can find all the pieces of them easily.
Okay. All right, good.
So that's for our cooks.
I would need some guidance still.
Well, Alex would be there. He'd probably be there through Zoom if you wanted.
Okay, good.
The next one is from Molly, a bookseller who has a quirky taste and interesting humor. So the first one she recommends, I actually just sold it right before, or sold our last one right before you got on air with us. So I'm going to tell you about it, but
Okay. All
we
right.
can get it easily for you for the holidays and after the holidays. It's called Dark Archives by Meghan Rosenblum. And it is about the history and ethics of books bound by human skin. So it's out there.
Hold on. The history and ethics of books bound by human skin.
I said what I said.
That's a pretty narrow niche there.
It is, but she says it's really interesting, and she argues that it's really interesting for people who are interested in like weird history as well as anything archival. And she says that it's like written in a very sort of like funny, light way because they know it's a weird subset. And I must note that Molly has a master's in library science, so that's probably
I don't even want to ask where the human skin comes from. It sounds Silence of the Lambs kind of stuff here. So we're going to.
It's true. It's also for a horror audience.
Yeah, horror audience. Okay, all right. Well,
but on a lighter, she says they're both light, but on a lighter note, she also recommends Field Guide to Dumb Birds by Matt Cratch. So she knows that a lot of us have been bird watching, or at least staring out our window wishing we could go somewhere. And so we have definitely noticed here at Park Road Books that bird watching books and like nature books have really gone up, but this is one that is just like, it's really funny. It's like makes fun of all the birds, and it gives, you do learn facts about each bird, but it's told in a very comical way. It's a little kind of like what I would imagine watching birds would be like with David Sedaris. So this is like a great humor book to give, and you learn some facts.
So we're just kind of sitting outside and watching the birds as they come to us. We're not out actually walking through the fields or anything. They're just, these are just dumb birds that might run into the plate glass window at Park Road Books. And
yes. Yes.
And we observe what kind they are. Okay.
And like some of the language is probably not appropriate for Facebook Live, but like, for example, the drawings are also funny. And it says like, this one's called a doofus hummingbird. Commonly known as a rufous hummingbird, but he describes all the stupid things that they do.
All right. Okay. Well, they can't stand up for themselves. Somebody might as well make fun of them, right? So.
Well, I hope you don't get a lot of hate mail from.
I was going to say, you're going to, that's right. We'll be getting all kind of problems after this, but all right. What we got next?
The next one is from James, who is the manager of the bookstore. I'm sure many of you know him. Yep. He recommends Hinch by Natalie Walschautz, or it's Natalie Zena Walschautz, but Walschautz is her last name. And so this is a book that he says really scratches a quirky itch for people. So you think it's going to be kind of like a superheroes book, and it is. It's a fantasy of sorts, but our main character Anna actually works for the villains, and she does like office work for villains. So she like makes spreadsheets and helps them like plan how they're gonna do things, but like not in a cool way, in a very like with paper clips and erasers way. And in it, she basically, one of her bosses, who's a supervillain, is holding someone captive, and a superhero comes in and saves the person who's kidnapped, but in doing so injures all sorts of people. And so she sort of develops this world of what like these superheroes are costing people in their saving of people, because she like gets injured and gets laid off, and so she starts like reporting her findings of all these people who have like suffered at the hands of superheroes. And so like it obviously it's kind of like this commentary on online scorn, and like there's all these people who sort of come out for her and against her, and it's just kind of this quirky world of like, what if we did like marketing for superheroes or things like that, or supervillains.
So let's take the supernatural world of superheroes and the supervillains that are also supernatural, and let's put some real life underneath them, you know, an accountant, a bookkeeper, and then things happen, and then that person's going to report on this as if it's a normal event, but it's in a supernatural world, right?
Yes, exactly. And she's like, my leg is broken because someone saved someone else.
All right.
Which
So,
did have me think, like, if you've ever watched an Avenger movie, it's like all these people are like dead on the
right,
side.
right, yeah.
But apparently the voice is really original. It's gotten a lot of rave reviews, and I feel like it's a good book for that person who reads a lot, but it's just such a unique story they wouldn't have read it.
All right. So, what else you got? I know you got one in here from you too.
I do. I put
Yeah.
mine at the end because,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
save the best
Yeah.
for last.
There you go.
So the next one is from John. He recommended Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And unlike the rest of these are all brand new, this is a much older, well, not super old, but it's from 2015. But he wanted to say that he just thinks it's essentially a letter from Ta-Nehisi Coates to his son about what it's like to be Black in America. It's kind of like somewhere between sociology and biography. And it's a really moving and it's really good. And he just feels like it's super relevant right now, and anyone who hasn't read it should. And then I also wanted to note that it would be a good time to buy it for someone who hasn't read it because, well, one, because of all the racial unrest that we are working through currently in America, but also HBO adapted it into a miniseries and they
Okay.
just started streaming it. So it's always good to have that sort of pairing for people.
Absolutely. Great suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, he can do no wrong. Ta-Nehisi Coates. Okay, so I have two recommendations.
Good. You get to recommend too. Yeah.
So the first one I wanted to recommend is for adults, and it's called Empire of Wild by Sherry DeMoline. And it is a couple of things, but I think what this book is good for in terms of the shopper or the buyer on your list is that I feel like this scratches that sort of Stephen King horror suspense itch without going too far. Like, it doesn't turn people off who don't love that genre. It essentially is a woman, and it's all based in Native American lore, and the author is Native American. A woman gets in a fight with her husband, and he says he's going for a walk to get air, and then he never comes back. Like, he goes missing for a year, and she's just, that's not like him. It's not who he is. And she finds him in a revival tent a year later as a preacher. And he appears to be her husband. She knows it's her husband, but he has no memory of her. It's not her husband, so on and so forth. And so it's a little bit mystery, a little bit intrigue. It involves a lot of Native American myths throughout it that are really interesting to read about once you've finished, that you're like, oh, this is how this pairs up. So it's a little horror, a little suspense, but it's a real page turner. You want to know what's happening. And I think it does a really good job of linking religion and colonization and how those kind of things work together in a way that is, you might think that's something of like the 1600s, but like, no, you can see how it would happen now.
That's great.
So it's really smart. And I feel like it's always good to read diverse authors that you wouldn't normally pick up. So I feel like a Native American author is great for that. And we have a ton of them, and I will happily sell it to you.
Good. Sounds good.
The second one, I felt like I should get a kids rec in there. So
Yeah.
I pulled a sort of a middle grades graphic novel called Measuring Up by Lily Lamott. And it is I would say anywhere from 4th grade to 7th grade could read it. So that's kind of a hard age to buy for. So I thought that was a good one to do. Essentially, it is a graphic novel, and it's beautiful, of course, that chronicles a Taiwanese girl's move to America, and she misses her grandmother and wants her grandmother to come visit for her dad's birthday, but she needs to save money for the plane trip. But what she misses the most is cooking with her grandmother, and she's really good at it. And so she joins this like kids reality television show for cooking. And so it does a really good job of two things. One, it like totally nails the cooking show, right? Like there's like a really nice judge, and then the judge who's too harsh, and then all of that. And
it's the Great British Baking Show for children. Is that the idea?
Yes. It is,
Yeah,
which
okay.
I'm sure they must have that. And then the other thing it does nice is that it's an immigration story that I feel like hasn't been told, in that it's not like she doesn't have problems at school. She does really well. She makes friends. She, you know, she's fine as far as quote unquote assimilating. But she does experience a lot of microaggressions, like people keep being like, because you're Chinese, and she's like, no, I'm Taiwanese, or things like that. So I think it does a good job of addressing, I guess, what we would call subtle racism or microaggressions, and how she sort of tries to navigate that and how that makes her feel. So it's kind of two storylines, but it's really good. And I feel like it's good for kids, but it's also good for adults. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
That's great. What's you got? Entry, you got mystery, you got us across the pond, you got us here, you got cooking books, you got nonfiction.
I did
and-
pull 3 books for like a particular person who might be on someone's shopping list, if you want me to share those as well.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, so one of the ones that we pulled is Step It Up and Go by David Minconi, and it's a history of popular music in North Carolina.
Oh, cool.
So we thought for our North Carolina
Sure.
viewers, they might want this, or even anybody who's really interested in music. It's like done really, really well, and you learn just like a ton of things. And he's a music journalist out of Raleigh, really well versed, and it really spans the beginning of North Carolina to present day. And we have some signed copies because we did an event with him. And we just feel like there's always that like person on your list musically that you never know to get them, but I think this would be a good book for them.
Right.
And then for if you needed like you have someone sort of religious in your life that you wanted to get them a book, but you know they have whatever texts they study.
Sure.
It's called Angels, and it's by Ann Nielsen, who is like a local artist, writer, and philanthropist. She has a gallery, I believe, down in Uptown. And essentially it's like a devotional with art and different questions. So you can write in it. You can also read different quotes and thoughts. And it's largely Christianity, but it does try to span a few other religions. But this is kind of beautiful gift for a religious person in your life. And the last one is we wanted to plug another cookbook. Vivian Howard has a new cookbook.
Y'all are really hungry over there, aren't you? You want
Always. You guys, everyone who comes to Park Road Books is working us so hard, we're starving.
Exactly.
It's called This Will Make It Taste Good. And what we like about this is it's not like your traditional cookbook of just like recipes. It's organized around this thing, or what she calls flavor heroes. So they're like, it'll be like a sauce or a way you prepare onions or something you can. And so they are meant to add flavor to a variety of dishes. So she gives you a bunch of ways you can use it once you make that flavor hero. But the idea would be that like, if you just have some chicken and some vegetables in your fridge with this flavor hero that you make in this book, you could really make it a lot better and interesting on your average weeknight. So I feel like it's a good gift for someone who is like a good cook and really wants to up it, or someone who wants to get more into cooking. Vivian Howard herself said that her ideal thing would be for someone to give the book, but also make a lot of the things like the sauces or the seasonings or whatever that she calls flavor heroes. You could make one of those ahead of time and give it with the book to get someone started. But I just think that we're all at home and we're all cooking more than we want to and doing way more dishes than we want to. At least we should enjoy what we're eating.
Exactly. So how many booksellers do you have over there?
We have about, I think I got everybody but one person. We have about 7, 8 booksellers.
Yeah, that's great. So you got people with different tastes, different variety of recommendations. So when somebody comes into the bookstore, if they say, I like this or I like that, then somebody is going to be able to tell them kind of this is where you go and that kind of thing. Yeah.
It's true. And I think something that I have learned in my time here is that we do a really good job of listening to each other. So like, I am not a sci-fi person, but I've listened to the sci-fi people enough to kind of know, okay, these are some options. And then we also, something that I know I personally do, and I would attest to my colleagues do as well, the customers give us the best recommendations. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, have you read this? Have you, and so those, I mean, I try to listen as much to the customers as I do the other booksellers. And I think we've built a really nice community where customers feel like they can pop into conversations and be like, oh, if you're looking for romance, try this, to people. And I love that. I love that about our store.
Well, I know you got So I'm speaking to a book club after this tonight, The Raving Beauties. I know you got this book here too over there. It's called The Christmas Redemption. I'm going to be speaking to them later tonight. Yeah, a little shameless plug there for the Christmas
Well,
courtroom.
we have it on our Christmas display right at the
Yeah,
front.
exactly, right at the front, and y'all have been good about displaying those. Well, it is that time of year, and as the characters say in the book, you should always believe. And in this case, let's always believe in bookstores. Let's always believe in good books. Let's always believe in reading and writing and arithmetic, maybe if we have to, right?
Only when necessary.
Only when necessary. So it's going to be a crunch time here between now and the end of the year for you guys. Y'all are working pretty hard. When I was over there the other day, it looked like the air traffic control center was humming. I mean, y'all are really moving, which is a good sign given everything that's going on. But I imagine that there are challenges that you're having to deal with in COVID that make that even more difficult, perhaps, than it would be in normal times, because you're having to ship and you're having to do stuff over the phone. But y'all are doing it with a cheerful face. So I guess you're going to just keep at it till end of the year, and then take a deep breath and go into the next year too, right?
That's the plan. We just ask that everyone, have a little patience with us, because things are moving a little slower because of the processes that people are going through to get books. And then also, with COVID, the printers and the shipping is a little different. So buy early, order early. But so far we're working hard. We're doing the best we can, and everyone's been really gracious.
Yeah. Okay. A few closing words about Parker Books and about Charlotte Readers Podcast. So, as far as Charlotte Readers Podcast is concerned, you can listen to these shows twice a week. We release them on Tuesday and Friday, and they're free, and they're on all major podcast platforms, and now on the Authors on Air Global Radio Network, which pushes out author-hosted literary podcast to a worldwide audience. So you can hear your local, your regional. And here's the interesting thing, Meghan. With one door shuts, another one opens with this thing that we're doing now, and I'm doing all these virtual podcasts. I'm able to interview authors from all over the U.S. now and internationally. So the focus is still, we're going to give local and regional authors a nod, a heads up, but we're also getting some big time authors and some interesting authors from different places. And just like on Charlotte's podcast, we got a lot of variety. The bookstore has a lot of variety, because you've got a few more books in that bookstore than you do that you just talked about tonight, right?
We do. And I have, when I talk to the booksellers, this was their top rec, but they have like 5 more that they were itching to tell you. So call, come in, email, we've got the recs for you.
So I believe it's parkroadbooks.com, right?
Yes.
That's the online. You can get them there, and the phone number will be on that at parkroadbooks.com. But you can tell them what's the phone number.
It's 704-525-9239.
Yeah, there you go. Add that descriptor before. So a couple of things quickly before we close. We're doing some new things with the podcast. We've got something called the Book Report, and the Book Report comes out every other Tuesday. You're going to get book recommendations, and hopefully our Park Road Books and others are going to make some of those recommendations in the new year. I'm going to get Meghan involved in doing that coming in 2021. We're going to have writing tips from some of our authors. We're going to have, you can have links to the author interviews and some videos, doses of inspiration, a free ebook from yours truly. So the Book Report, I don't know why you wouldn't do it. It's free. I mean, why not, right, Meghan? Right? Yeah.
I'd sign up.
There you go.
I am signing. I'll sign up right now.
You'll sign up again. Yeah. We'll double it. And then the last thing I'll tell you, if you like, if you're a writer, or you want to be a writer, or you think you want to be a writer, we're putting out a lot of exclusive content on our Patreon channel now. I put up 32 episodes with the help of our authors in 2020. We're going to put out between 4 and 8 a month in 2021. We're really ramping it up. And it's everything about writing. It's about the business of writing. We're going to even get some bookstore people in. We're going to just talk about lots of interesting things to writers, and we'll do to readers too, because we're going to do some readings as well. So check out Patreon. If you've never heard of it, it's just a way that people help support creators, and when they do, they get content in return, and I'm going to give it back to you with the help of our authors. So patreon.com/Charlotte Readers Podcast. Meghan, tell us what you're excited about in the next 3 weeks.
I'm really, because everyone's shopping so early, I'm really excited to see who comes in on Christmas Eve. Like, who is it? Will it be our normal dads? will it be? Who will it be? I don't know, but
Well,
I am quite excited.
You know, it might be me because that was a tradition I had, but I've kind of done some advanced preparation in the past, but I just feel like for old time's sake, I should still probably go out on Christmas Eve. Are y'all going to be open till noon on Christmas Eve or
We're open until 4. I
4?
think
Okay.
we're open 10 to 4. Yeah. So we have
Okay.
abbreviated hours on Christmas Eve, but we're there for
Okay.
your last minute gifts.
All right. So all right, we'll come by and we'll buy, if there are any of these left, I'll get one myself, you know, so.
Probably won't be though. We
probably
know
won't be.
it sells
We'll-
really quickly.
They'll
Yeah.
sell fast. They'll sell fast. Well, Megan, listen, I want to thank you for coming on our Tune In Tuesday Live with Charlotte Rules podcast, and I look forward to working with you in the future to give us some more great book recommendations. I loved hearing about all this variety, which is it's a great thing to be able to escape with books, right?
Totally. We 100% endorse that at Parkwood Books. We don't endorse getting on a plane right now, but we do endorse doing it through books.
All right. Well, that's great. Well, if I can figure out how to hit the off button, we'll sign off of Facebook Live. And Megan, thank you for being here. And
Thank you for having us.
Thanks,
everybody go
everybody.
listen to Charlotte Reader's podcast. It's
Yeah.
amazing. We love it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Take care, Megan. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.